Don't, you tore my dress, after the rancher did that, and then he regretted it. The wind swept hard across the open plains, bending the tall grass like waves on a restless sea. Clara tightened her grip on the fabric of her blue dress as she hurried toward the old ranch house. She had never planned to be here, never planned to step onto land owned by a man everyone in town warned her about. Ethan Cole. They said he was rough, cold, and carried anger the way other men carried kindness. Since his wife had died years ago, the ranch had turned silent, and so had he. Clara had only come because her wagon had broken down miles away, and night was closing in fast. The ranch door slammed open as she knocked. "What do you want?" Ethan's voice was sharp, suspicious. "My wagon, it broke," Clara said, breathless. "I just need shelter for the night." Ethan's eyes flicked over her dress, the dust on her shoes, the fear she tried to hide. He hesitated, then stepped aside. "One night, that's all." Inside, the house smelled of wood smoke and loneliness. Clara stayed close to the door, aware of how tense the air felt. She thanked him softly and moved toward the chair near the fireplace. But when she turned, her dress caught on a broken nail jutting from the table. Rip! The sound echoed louder than it should have. "Don't!" Clara gasped. "You tore my dress." She grabbed the fabric, her face flushing with shock and embarrassment. Ethan froze, his hand still hovering near the table where he had just shoved it aside moments earlier, angry about something else entirely. "I didn't mean," he started, then stopped. Clara's eyes filled, not with tears, but with something sharper. Hurt, not just at the torn dress, but at the way he had looked at her like she was an inconvenience instead of a human being. Silence stretched between them. Ethan turned away abruptly. "There's sewing supplies in the drawer. Fix it if you want." The words were cold, careless. Clara swallowed hard. "I didn't come here to be treated like this." He didn't respond. Later that night, Ethan sat alone on the porch, staring into the darkness. The wind carried her earlier words back to him. He hadn't meant to hurt her. But intention didn't change the damage. He remembered his wife, how gentle she had been, how she used to mend his shirts without complaint. Since losing her, he had built walls instead of bridges, convinced himself it was easier to be harsh than to feel anything at all. Inside, Clara struggled to stitch the torn fabric. Her hands shook, not from cold, but from the realization of how vulnerable she felt so far from home. A knock sounded softly on the door. Ethan stepped in, holding something folded carefully in his hands. "This was my wife's," he said quietly, placing a shawl beside her. "She used to wear it when the nights got cold." Clara looked up, surprised by the change in his voice. "Thank you. I shouldn't have spoken to you like that," he continued. "Or let my temper ruin the moment. I'm sorry, for the dress, and for everything else." Regret sat heavy on his shoulders. Clara studied him for a long moment. "People don't always mean to hurt others," she said slowly. "But they still do." He nodded. "I know." The storm outside grew louder, rain tapping against the windows. Ethan offered her the guest room, and this time, his words carried care instead of command. Over the next few days, Clara stayed longer than planned. The wagon needed parts, the roads were muddy, and somehow, conversations started replacing silence. She helped around the ranch, and Ethan began to smile again, small, unsure smiles, but real ones. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Clara wore the repaired dress. The tear was barely noticeable now. Ethan noticed anyway. "I still regret that day," he admitted. Clara smiled gently. Sometimes regret is the beginning of change. As she eventually prepared to leave, Ethan realized something he hadn't expected. The tear in her dress had torn something open in him too. His grief, his isolation, his fear of caring again. "Will you come back?" he asked quietly. Clara met his gaze. "If you keep choosing kindness, maybe." She rode away under a golden sky, leaving behind a ranch that no longer felt so empty, and a man who had finally learned that regret could lead to redemption.